Well, I don't know where to begin this little episode because, and the reason I'm wearing the headset is because you look a little bit less weird talking to yourself in the street if you've got a headphone on you on a boom mic. But, as you see, I'm in Belfast this morning. Maybe going to look up towards the City Hall direction that way. But the reason I decided to come on so quickly after getting off the bus was, you're not going to believe this, these guys, but anyway, I'm sitting on the bus this morning, and at the moment the buses from Armagh, Portadown into Belfast are packed because they're building a new railway line into the station here in Belfast. There's a new station opening. I think they're going to call it Belfast Central, but in the meantime the buses are packed. So this lady of a certain age, not far from my own, happened to sit down beside me, and she got her bags settled, and of course conversation opens about how terrible things are at the minute trying to get public transport to Belfast. And so, as I usually do, I introduced myself and I say, well, hello, what's your name? And she introduced herself as Audrey, and Audrey and I then got chatting, general this and that, and she works for a certain government department, who, for the sake of anonymity, will not go there, but she told me some wonderful, hilarious stories about how civil servants abuse their position in relation to their sick days, and literally squeezing every ounce out of their eligibility to claim sick. And in particular, she told me that in her department they do a survey of the sick days throughout the UK, and Northern Ireland comes out on an average of 68 sick days per annum for each, well, on the average for each employee, whereas the next nearest is something like 38 in somewhere to Glasgow. Anyway, so as we say, the Northern Ireland people are very good at swinging the lead, but that's not really the essence of what my yarn is all about this morning. Basically, I mentioned the fact that I came from, or one stage in my life, from Annaghmore, and so she said, that's my cousin Patsy. My cousin Patsy, he was shot during the Troubles, and you all are not going to believe this, but her cousin's Patsy, as I say, was shot, and apologies for the sort of intake of breath here, but I said, well, no, I know well all about that, and I went on to explain that on the night that her cousin's Patsy was shot, I was, along with Mary Jose, babysitting for Sammy and Michelle, who'd gone off for the weekend and left us with the two kids, I think they were then, to look after. And I had a few friends around, or we had a few friends around. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday evening, I'm not sure which. And next thing anyway, this almighty banging and shouting came at the door, and it was Josie McNeice, Patsy's wife, and she was shouting at the top of her voice, "Get me the priest, get me the priest." And I said, what's happened? She says, they've shot my Patsy, get me the priest. Oh, we said, well, Mrs. McNeice will organise the police and the ambulance and whatever, and she said, "No, son, that's no use to me, Patsy. Get me the priest." And so I took Mrs. McNeice down in the car, back down to their little cottage, which was just about a few hundred yards down the road. And as we got there and out of the car, wasn't there 3 little children all poking their heads out of the front door, one literally on top of the other, a scene I will never forget, and a little single bulb light above the cottage door. And wasn't their father lying on the ground in front of them, having been shot dead just literally minutes before. Just words can't explain it or describe to you what your emotions and what went through you at that particular time. But I then brought Mrs. McNeice down to her sister's. Her sister lived down the road, and I brought her down to her sister's house further on, and waited in the car while she went in to see to her sister and explain what had happened. While I was waiting in the car, this other vehicle came at speed and went flying past down to what was a pub down below us called the Cozy Corner. It was on like a crossroads, and this car swung around, back up, and flying past me again. Now, I can't be sure, but I do believe it probably had some connection with what had happened. Then I did recall and said to Audrey today, because it only come back to me fairly recently, I remember talking to a policeman about it at the time, but nobody ever yet asked me to make a statement. In my line of work as a lawyer, I find now, looking back on it, very strange. It was, I wasn't a material witness, but I was a witness after the fact, and I had provided some potential information. But and it's very difficult to explain when you've gone through something like that, as to what effect it ever had on you in your life. But I recently read a book which I would recommend to anyone, and it's called Dirty Linen, and it's by a journalist who hails from Lawrencetown. His name escapes me at the moment, but it was all about the murder triangle, because we lived in what was known as the murder triangle, and there were, it was round that whole area from Lurgan out towards Banbridge, and when I read the book, it was in holiday in Turkey last year, I was literally crying on the beach as I read the book. It was so moving, and as I say, I would recommend it to anyone, that they should, if they get a chance, to read it, because it really brings you back down to earth, the horrible times that we lived in during those years, and thank God they're behind us now. But it also struck me that when I see this whole controversy over the Legacy Act, that I became very indignant and thought, how dare anyone tell these grieving families that it's time to move on. It's just, as I say, it's just not right. Those who are grieving families need to know that the loss of their loved ones and all the suffering that other families have encountered, that has to be addressed in some way. So I didn't mean this to turn into a party political broadcast, but those are my feelings, and I thought on this little walk to work from the bus that I should record the incidents. And then getting back to the fact that, if you don't tell talk to anyone. That lady could have got on the bus, gone off to her work, and me the same, my head stuck in the iPad. But my God, what a rich vein I struck this morning. And there's a follow-up to it. She started, I said, well, you're from Loughgall, any chance you might know Peter McNeil? And she said, so there was nearly a fight in the bus, because she told me Peter McNeil was her best friend, and I said, no, he's not, he's my best friend. So, anyway, there we go. There's another twist to that story at the end, which I'll maybe get around to, but I'm arriving at the office now, and as my sons say, my wee videos are far too long. People get fed up listening to them, and I have to cut them shorter. But anyway, when I'm getting to it, sure, it's just across the road. I'll have to give you a wee glimpse at headquarters. Where are we? So that's where I'm going now to spend the best part of the next 7 or 8 hours here. Thanks very much to everybody for listening, and I hope you're not getting fed up with me.